Realtors, are you curious how the new home sales process works? Do you want to learn how to provide more value for your clients and possibly even negotiate a better deal for them with new construction? Then you are in for a treat today as we have an exclusive interview with my friend Sophia. She is a seasoned expert who has specialized in selling new construction homes for nearly 2 decades. And although I am a resale agent now, my background includes 8 years of experience selling new builds while working for one of the largest builders in the nation. Sophia and I actually used to work together for many years. So today we're going to provide you with a unique perspective on the industry from a viewpoint of a new home sales agent, and I guess you could call me a retired new home sales consultant now on the resale side. Today we will dive deep into Sophia's experience and knowledge, exploring the ins and outs of the new home sales process, offering you tips and strategies that you won't want to miss. So grab a pen, take some notes, and let's get started. Sophia, thank you so much for joining us today. I know we've been meaning to get this recorded for a while because there are a lot of real estate agents out there confused about how they can provide value for their clients when they're looking at new construction. And new construction homes are more popular than ever right now with all of the builder incentives. So let's start off with this question. You obviously love selling new homes. You've been doing it for a very long time. So what makes new home sales a good option for a potential home buyer?
Well, right now, especially right now in today's market, as you know, there's not as big of a gap between what I would say a new home and a resale home on the market today. So in earlier years, you would see a big price difference. You would see maybe that location was a lot further. Today, you're going to find location, you're going to find pricing is more competitive with what's going on the resale market. And the biggest thing is builders it's the power of the rate buy down right now. We are able to offer such great incentives to your buyers right now that it makes sense. Yeah. It's pure. There's only one option right there, right? In my opinion.
I agree. And honestly, as a resale agent, I can sell both new construction and we list homes. We sell, guess you could call them used homes, and new builds are our seller's biggest competitor right now. We are hearing it daily where we'll have a showing on our listing. They love the home, but ultimately they say we went with a new build because how can you beat the warranty? Everything's new. And you guys are offering so many different incentives. It's crazy.
It is pretty competitive right now. We're also usually able to take a little bit less earnest money. We're a little bit flexible as far as timing goes. You're going to find homes that are finished out there right now, completed spec homes, or if your clients want that option or need the option for longer time periods, then there are builders out there that are still actually building from scratch and allowing them to go through that process and experience.
Yeah. So how does that work? If somebody came into your office today, wanted to buy a new home, what does their typical out-of-pocket look like?
This is crazy, Shannon. So not all markets, you know this, but some submarkets. I'll give you a very extreme example. I just had somebody close in the neighborhood that I'm selling in today for less than what our Starbucks order would be.
Wow.
That's it. That was their all out of pocket. So again, when you're exploring new builds, there are different areas that offer some really specialized loan programs. But generally speaking, like a builder's going to take anywhere from $500 to maybe some of them take quite a bit more. They're going to be in the upwards of $10,000, $15,000 for earnest money to get started, but it doesn't have to be that expensive. You really just have to understand where you're looking and what you're looking for. And I really feel like from your perspective, your job, realtors are missing the mark when it comes to new construction because they're not putting that in their business plan. They're not thinking about it. And part of me thinks that's because they just don't know.
Yeah, I agree. That's why I wanted to do this video, because I think the real estate community, if they don't have experience in new home sales, there's a lot of fear there. And it can be very intimidating walking into a new home sales office and not really knowing what to do. It's a much different experience showing a new build versus a traditional resale home that we do all the time. So I really want to talk about some of the frequently asked questions out there. And one of them is, why are builders so particular on your realtor must be with you on your first visit for buyers?
Because we're paying you for being the procuring cause, right? For bringing that person to the neighborhood. where I am today, we definitely welcome that realtor community, and we want to establish that relationship and work with you as much as we can. A lot of our business relies on that, and we know how valuable you are to us and helping us sell those homes. There's a lot of intimidation out there. There are some builders. I think we should touch on it a little bit, especially after the last couple of years. There are some builders that have adjusted or modified their commissions, and so it's really put a sour taste in the mouth of the realtor community.
I agree.
And I look at it from both sides. One, it's your fiduciary responsibility to show your client and be in the best interest of your client. And so that shouldn't sway you, but at the same time, I understand why it might sway some people. And that's where you really need to educate your buyers and your clients of how important it is to bring them in, so you're not put into an experience that might not benefit you or them.
Yeah,
right?
It's so important for buyers to realize the power of having a realtor represent them on a new home sale. And it can be fun, right, on a Saturday afternoon to go look at model homes. But what buyers don't realize, if they walk into that sales office without their real estate agent and they decide to buy a home, they may go through that whole process not being represented by an agent. And buyers also need to know they're not going to save any money or get any extra better deals.
I was just going to say that. You're not.
How would you say, what if a buyer's like, hey, I don't have a real estate agent. Can I save money on this house?
No, I'm sorry, you can't. We're offering you as the client like the best deal that we can. And I tell people, listen, I represent the seller. So this would be similar to a transaction if you were going out and listing someone's home, right? You're going to represent that person in that transaction, not the person that's, well, unless there's dual, right?
Yeah.
So for me, I represent the seller, you represent the buyer. I'm always going to be kind and helpful and answer their questions and be there to provide the best experience that I can from the new home standpoint. But if it comes down to the nitty gritty and we have a situation where there's a disagreement or, I have to call the terms of the contract, again, I'm there for the sellers. So in that situation, a buyer is really going to benefit from having a realtor because they're going to be able to explain that. You're going to have a different relationship than I'm going to have with that person. Yeah. And you're also going to preference that all of those cautions or concerns that they might have prior to even going under contract, most likely.
There's a lot that goes into a new home sales contract. I mean, I mentioned I've sold and closed hundreds of new builds, and for the buyers that come in without a realtor representing them, it's like going to court without an attorney because there's a lot of things that come up. The purchase agreement really favors the seller. So a new home sales consultant could throw something in there like a CFD, which is a community facilities district, an additional tax that maybe they're not explaining, and their real estate agent can help them kind of walk them through the contract. And also if things come up, I mean, I had a client who had the wrong countertop installed and the builder was really pushing back and saying, no, it is what it is.
You signed it.
I got involved and we got new countertops for them, So if you are basically getting almost free representation as a buyer to have somebody on your side, why not take advantage of that?
Well, and it is free. So it's at no cost to the buyer. We, as the seller, are actually going to pay your real estate agent. So one of the things you touched on, Shannon, was the purchase contract. And as a realtor that's not familiar with how this process goes, our purchase contracts typically, they tend to be in the upwards of 100 pages. And today, years ago, we used to go through the contract. As a new build agent, I would go through the contract with a buyer. We don't do that today. And so again, not having your realtor with you or being able to explain it, the biggest thing I'm going to let people know is when their earnest money is at risk. But again, I'm expecting you to read the purchase contract. If you ask a specific question, I'm there to answer that question, but I can't interpret the contract for you. So having a realtor that's experienced or at least does the legwork ahead of time, they're able to answer those questions or prepare you before you even go into contract.
Yeah. And what a lot of new home sales consultants will do when there's a realtor involved is you guys will send us the contract first to review. So what are the top 3 things a real estate agent should be looking for when they're reviewing a contract for their client?
Even before the contract, I think it's important that they review the public report because they might be aware of a sensitive topic or subject. It's no secret. Most new construction homes are going to be built around an airport, power lines, a train, maybe water treatment plants, things like that. Your buyer might be sensitive to. So having that information ahead of time. A topic you brought up just now is I would look to see if it has a CFD. It's very common with new construction today. And it's a very hard topic to explain. So educating yourself on how to explain that and What that means to them in the long term, I think, is very important. Yeah. And it's also going to create a lot of value between the realtor and you as the realtor and the client. I feel like coming to the table, having that information. So timing of earnest money is important as far as what's the earnest money amount? Is there a time commitment as far as getting a loan pre-qualification or a loan commitment? There are some builders out there that say, hey, if you agree to this loan commitment, your earnest money is now non-refundable. Yep. And they're collecting large amounts of money. Yeah. We're talking almost full down payments for first-time buyers. Yeah. So I personally would hate to see somebody lose that kind of money because they weren't educated up front or didn't have that representation. Yes. I'm definitely welcoming the realtor community coming in. Yeah. I think they make the process easier and more fun. And overall, the buyer is just having a better experience.
Yeah, so those are great points. So as a real estate agent, you have to understand what a public report is. You get that when you buy a new home. It discloses all of the area information, things that are coming that could be issues. So making sure your buyer reads through the public report, asking the sales consultant and looking in the new home sales contract, are there any additional taxes like a CFD, which is a community facilities district, and really understanding when does that earnest deposit become non-refundable, because it's much different than our traditional contract where you have a 10-day inspection period. If your loans decline 3 days before closing, you can get your deposit back. And with new builds, every builder has a different policy.
It's pretty much non-refundable right away in most cases. It's interesting you say that. I still get this question today from a lot of realtors, and generally I can tell if I have a younger or newer agent coming into the office, and I think that's great. I definitely I want to help them, but it's not always welcomed, you know. But they say, well, do I have a 3-day right of rescission? Do I, is there an inspection period? Like everything that you just brought up, it doesn't apply in our world. I would really love to see agents get out into the new build community and interact with us more or prior to them bringing their customer out.
I agree.
I feel like there's a lot of homework that could be done that's going to make that process a lot more seamless. Yeah. And it sounds like it takes up a lot of time, or it sounds like it's not going to, benefit you, but
I agree. So here in the Phoenix area, we have a lot of new build subdivisions, and I think a lot of real estate agents, since I've left new home sales, I've seen this firsthand, they just want that overnight success. They want it to be as easy as possible. They don't want to put in any of the legwork. But if you are a real estate agent and you don't have a lot going on, maybe pick one day of the week to just visit new home sales communities. Over a few months, you can almost get to all of them. Go into the sales office, meet the sales consultant, maybe take some Instagram reels. I mean, you guys are okay with people taking video.
Love it. We love it.
Yeah, help the builder promote, bring your cell phone, do some reels of maybe you walking in the home or just doing a voiceover, showing your followers what you can buy for that price point. And then you become that area expert. People think of you when it's time to buy a new home. You're reminding the community how important it is to have a real estate agent. And then you are developing relationships with the new home sales consultants. It is a complete game changer walking into a new home sales office, knowing the agent, right? I know a lot of the community because I was part of that. Walking in and saying, hey, Sophia, how's your dog? Like, it makes the buyer feel so much more comfortable, and it makes the process so much better.
Yeah. I have a group of agents in my phone. I probably have hundreds of agents. They're my first go-to. So also, if you want to stay connected with what's going on in the new home world, make friends with a new home agent and stay in touch with them on a regular basis. And we all know each other pretty well. So even if I'm not the builder that you're going to choose, if I don't have something in my company, I'm generally going to know if someone else in that area is going to have something.
Yeah, that's a really good point. As new home sales consultants, you guys know all of your competition really well. So if I come into your office and say, hey, we need a 3-car garage, and you don't have that available, you may say, hey, so-and-so down the street has that. You should check it out. Also, a lot of builders have inventory homes, which could be ready for move-in in as quickly as 30 days, and they have great incentives. Not every inventory home is on MLS, so getting the builder's inventory list, I think, is important.
And not every inventory home is someone that canceled.
Yeah, that's
so,
true.
For example, we just build inventory homes. Yeah. We want there to be availability. We want, there to be options for the customer as well.
Yeah, it is so different these days, where back in the day, everything was a new build. Yep. It was 6 to 8 months out. You put your deposit down, you close on your home, next year. But now you can find something fast, get a great deal. Some builders, it's very rare to find where you actually pick your dirt lot and build. Can you at your community build from scratch?
We cannot at mine, but
okay.
My neighbor across the street, you can still do that.
Yeah.
And that might work for some people with their timing or what life changes are happening. The other thing we might just touch on really quick, because a lot of people think, oh, I need to build from scratch because I need to do a contingency. I have to sell my home.
Yeah.
Not all builders will allow a contingency. We will, for example, I'll take a contingency on a home that can close in 30 or 60 days. And I'm going to really rely on you to say, hey, Shannon, what's this home priced at? Do you feel like you're competitive in the market? What are you doing to sell the home? So as a realtor, expect those questions from the new home agent and understand what that contingency process looks like for each builder. Yeah. It could mean their earnest money is at risk. It could mean that it's not at risk. Yeah. It could mean that your client needs to list their home within 10 days or they only have 60, 90 days to sell their home. Yeah. Those are all great conversations to have with the new build agent before you even show up with your client. Yes. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to make you look like the expert in that situation.
Yes, you've got to do your homework. Even if you have time, everyone has extra time. Go in the day before. Like, get the research done. Know what floor plans are available. Know your new home inventory, because new homes are one of the best options for buyers right now. And there's no excuse for a real estate agent to not know their market. So I just got some of my clients under contract on a new build inventory home closing in 60 days. And the builder allowed a contingency. So we right away listed their home. It's sold. It's under contract. So they're basically going to close on their smaller home, take the proceeds, use it as a down payment on their new build. They're so excited. And I was even surprised because we didn't see contingencies available on new builds at all over the past few years. If somebody is living in their home, they love their low interest rate, but they want something bigger, they want something smaller, you can literally get into a new build with a lower interest rate and have a contingency. So there's not a lot of risk if your home doesn't sell.
Right. I think it's a good option for people.
So what other value can real estate agents provide? Or actually, I like this question. What annoys you about realtors when they come into your new home sales office?
Oh, gosh. I don't know if annoys the right word. It might be in some situations.
Yeah, I know I was annoyed a lot because I sat behind that new home sales desk for 8 years and I was rolling my eyes a lot at the real estate community. And now I'm one of them, right? But what kind of bothers you?
I think my biggest frustration is the lack of willingness to get out there and do the extra work ahead of time. Yep. Like if there's one thing that I could I mean, there's so many new agents coming on board. If you don't know about the process of new homes, come out before, do a little research. Let's have a conversation and I want to prepare you. So there's a big fear out there. I've heard from agents over the years, oh, you're going to steal my clients. Oh, yeah. No, I'm not going to steal your clients. I work for the seller. Like understand representation and then 2, understand what this process is going to look like. So I'll give you a couple things. I feel like them not doing their homework is one, and the type of questions that are being asked or not understanding what that process looks like is something else that's annoying. And I'll give you an example of that question. I think you probably already know what it is. But then also them not allowing the process to move forward. My assumption is if you put someone in your car or they're following you around and you're showing homes that one, you've probably done a pre-qualification with them. And if you haven't, I mean, that's okay. But where do we even know where we're going in this process?
You have to get your buyers pre-qual day one, or you're just wasting everyone's time.
Shocked at the amount of people that come. So there's 2 different kinds of agents. There's the agent that doesn't do any work and then comes out and wants you to do all the work. And then there's the person that comes out and that's just inexperienced, in my opinion. And inexperienced, that's fine. We can change that and we can help you. And I don't know a new home agent in the industry right now that would not be willing to help a realtor establish that confidence to sell new homes. One of the biggest questions that I find annoying is what's included. What are your standard features? And it's not the question, it's the timing of the question. I figured it out because I don't mind the question, but if you come and visit me, Shannon, and I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to do a little bit of digging and I'm going to try to understand what are your clients looking for. And I would hope all new home agents are doing this. The industry has changed in the last 20 years. And so I am finding not a lot of new home agents are as experienced.
It's really bad out there, Sophia.
digging
Us
deep.
OG new home sales, we are well trained. We know how to overcome objections. We know how to sell the product. But
we know how to ask the questions.
Man, sometimes I go into these new home sales offices and the new home sales consultant doesn't even get up from their desk. They just point and they hand me the key and say, here's the map. Go look at the spec home. And I'm like, man, I can do this. I've sold and closed hundreds of homes, but get up, stand
it's part
up.
Of the experience. I'm sorry.
I am just so frustrated as a real estate agent because why sell us on your community? You have beautiful amenities. You have energy efficient features. You have incredible warranties. Sell that to my client so they can understand what they're buying here. 9 times out of 10, I walk into a new home sales office. They're not doing any type of sales 101 things and they're handing me a key. You guys have time to come with us. A new home sales consultant should be demonstrating the model, at least the first model, I believe, to show at that point, maybe what is included, what's the energy efficiency, things like that. And sending me as a realtor out to a spec home that's under construction with a key, with no other information than a map and a key, that is not selling, right?
You're not providing a service to anyone. You're not providing the service to the buyer or you as the realtor to establish that relationship to bring clients back.
Yes.
Yeah, that's wrong. And I hear those horror stories all the time. And I hope as an industry we start evolving back into. So I was trained, you were trained to sell. We are trained to sell the home. So a lot of agents will come out and they don't expect that, right? They're coming out with the intention of, I have 15 homes to show my client. Yeah. So a lot of agents stop the sale. Yeah. And for me, that's frustrating because had we had a conversation before, I'm going to tell you, hey, Shannon, I'm going to ask your clients to buy a house.
Yeah.
So you're prepared for that. And you can say to them, now remember, she's here to sell you a home, but with the intention that we're finding something that's meeting their needs. I'm not going to blindly ask them to buy a house. Well, I might. Yeah. But my intention is to help them. I'm on a mission to help them. So when you come out and visit me, I'm going to dive deep into questions that you may or may not have asked them. You, of course, would have asked them. But not all realtors would. And so had we have a conversation before, I might ask the realtor this question. They may or may not know the answer. And I'll say, listen, are you okay if I, dig in and ask your client some of these questions? And what I'm looking for is time frame. What kind of payment do you have in mind? Yeah. What kind of space is important to you? Are there any finishes that are important to you? So then we are now having a natural conversation and they don't feel as though they're standing on a car lot getting sold something that they may or may not want.
Thrown a key
That is not the process.
Yeah, and that is so important. Sales 101 in anything, before you start talking, you have to ask the client, what is important to you? Yeah. What are you looking for?
And they might not know the answer to that question, but I somehow can find a way to get it out of them in a different, if I don't have something, Shannon, I'm going to say, I don't know that I'm a good fit for you. This community might not be it, but I can suggest this, or this community.
Yes.
And I would hope that most new home agents are able to do the same. But if you're just handing them a key, you probably shouldn't be in this industry, if I'm being frank.
I was showing new builds with some clients the other day, and I walked in and they saw the inventory homes online, and these were $1 million homes. And the new home sales consultant thankfully stood up and came over to us, and she never asked, what are you looking for? And she was sending us to a home out of their budget. We were about to waste my time, their time, looking at a home they can't afford. So you have to ask the questions. But what are some questions besides what's included that real estate agents ask you that maybe frustrate you?
Well, you just made me think of something else I was going to pop back, because you had mentioned how they were showing. I'll come back to your question. So when you were saying how she was showing you a home that was out of their budget, and as a new home agent, if I'm asking the right questions, so in some scenarios we can go out of someone's price range depending on what type of builder incentives are being offered.
No, that's a really good point, because if you're approved for X number of payment, your payment's going to be less at a new home right now with all of your incentives. That's a really good point.
So what frustrates agents on my end is I start asking, well, tell me what you're comfortable with your payment. I don't really want to talk about price at this point, because I know, again, the power of my rate buy down, what I can accomplish if this person is, of course, is qualified. They want to go with the builder lender. Usually all incentives are tied with that. So I think that's important for a real estate agent to know, is like, you have a sales price in mind.
Yep.
you have a general idea, but let's
Yeah.
talk through that, because I've had agents just shut me down. No.
Yes,
no.
I love that, because you could, as a real estate agent, you could have a buyer pre-qualified up to 500,000, and that 500,000 is different at a new home community because these builders are offering incredible interest rate buy downs. I've seen some as low as 4.99, 5.5. So your buying power with
Hundreds
a
of
new
dollars.
home. Yes.
Hundreds of dollars of savings. On a
Yes,
monthly payment.
your buying power at a new home community is so much more. You may be approved up to 550 and get a brand new home. I think we can both agree that real estate agents don't really know what to do when they're showing new homes. And if you are with a really good new home sales consultant, it's important to just be quiet. Let them do their job. Ask a few questions here and there. But sometimes that sales consultant's not doing their job and you feel like you kind of have to step in. But I think agents are just wondering, they want to provide more value for their clients. So do you have any advice for them? Like, besides doing all the research and talking to you beforehand, what can they do to provide more value?
So I like the agent that kind of takes a step back, but I want to bring them back into the conversation because I want them to feel important, and I want their client to go, oh, okay, this is why she brought us here. I feel really good about this. So as we go through that process, I will remind them, I've already spoke with your agent about this, or we talked about this, or so it's important for them, you want to go through the contract. And then if your buyer is agreeing or liking something, I think giving them that reassurance that, like, they're showing all signs of buying a home and wanting to move forward, they're going to look to you for a little bit of guidance on, is this right? Is it too fast? Am I making the right decision? So I think providing that guidance, providing that feedback, a lot of times I'll have an agent come in and they'll automatically point out everything that they don't like about the home.
Yeah.
And I've had to pull an agent aside before, Shannon, and just say, hey, are you going to be living with your clients? Because they seem to really like these things about the home.
Oh, I've learned that in my early days. For example, if you go into a kitchen, you don't like the cabinet color, you stay quiet until your client tells you. Because if I go in and say, oh, that cabinet color is interesting, and they're like, well, I actually love it. Like, they don't need your opinion on things
It's
like
a
that.
huge mistake realtors make. And I'll tell you what, laminate is back in the market right now for countertops. And it really comes, I know it's interesting.
But it's faux granite, I used to call.
Is. Okay, I
Does
like
it
it.
still
I'm
look
gonna
like
use it.
I literally, when I was selling $99,000 homes back in Florence, Arizona, back in the day, we had faux granite countertops. They were made to look like granite, but they're actually laminate.
I am using that one. Learned something today. But what I've learned is there are some buyers out there where space or other things are far more important than the look of their countertop, which...
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, it can be easily changed. You can't change the location. You can't change the space in your home.
Yeah.
And so I've had agents come in and just, oh, I can't do this.
Yes. Now the word change, I'm surprised you haven't brought this up already, because I'm sure you get very annoyed with agents when they try to ask, can I change the countertops? Can I change this? Can I add a door? What if you have a home at frame stage and they want to change the exterior paint color? What do you say?
I would say 99% of the time, the ask of the change is probably going to be a no. Mm-hmm. And for many reasons, and really that's educating, right? So the permit's been pulled, things have been submitted to the municipality. There's reasons colors are selected on certain lots and homes, and that just, so there's no monotony through the neighborhood, right? Yeah. So expect that. Even if the home is at a slab stage, I would expect that the builder not be able to make any changes.
Yeah, and it's very hard for buyers and the real estate community to understand why a home at the slab or frame stage cannot have a tile change, right? Because everything is ordered day one. The structural options are permitted. It's very difficult for a builder to make a change, and it can frustrate people. But as real estate agents, we need to understand that it's probably going to be a no. Sometimes it may be worth asking, but you don't want to look like you don't know what you're doing, because in the new build community, changes are not typically allowed.
And for the benefit of the buyer, because once we've selected or made all of those options, that locks in that pricing. And any changes beyond that are going to change the pricing. They're going to change the cost of the home. There's too much unpredictability on if that change will even be made. Yeah. There's a big train behind us building this house, a big train of trades and workers coming through, and they don't always get those updates and changes. So I would expect that question, I would ask the question if you'd like to. There are some agents in the community that feel like they're very strong new build advocates, if you will, and that they know certain builders or certain ways builders do. But what they're not doing is following any changes that are occurring.
Yeah.
And so then they'll come out and they want to be the one to rattle off or demonstrate that model or tell the buyer everything that's included. And they may or may not realize some of the changes that have happened since the last time that they were in that neighborhood.
Yeah. Things change all the time in the new home world. And also you may, as a buyer, be frustrated if you're buying an inventory home that is under construction or done, and there's options you don't want in there. You don't want to pay for the garage service door or things like that. But if you have a reduced price, it's already factored into the margins there. So they have to understand, why pricing is what it is, why changing is a big deal and a lot of times not allowed. But one thing that I think is really cool about new home construction is a lot of times with these big builders, all that's required out of pocket is your initial deposit, and you're locking in that price. Because a lot of experts are saying once these interest rates start to go down, millions of buyers will enter back into the market. And if that happens, we could very well in 2024 be right back where we were in the crazy market, which was not fun. To buy a new build, you had to almost camp outside and be pulled out of a hat. So I think that's really cool that you can, as a buyer right now, put some money down, lock in that price. What do you say if somebody asks, what if your prices go down while I'm under construction?
They might. Yeah, they might go down. They might go up, though, too.
True.
So that's something to consider. I like to tell people that that's going to happen all the time, because as a builder, I'm going to play around with pricing, and I'm going to do what it takes to drive people to my community to sell more homes and build up your neighborhood faster. So you might see a price reduction on one home. You might see a price increase on another home. There may be cash pricing incentives out there. There may be special pricing incentives out there. But there's a lot of movement going on, and we're gonna pivot with the market as quickly as we can. I don't think you're really going to see a lot of large price reductions. You and I were around when that happened, and you saw $80,000, $100,000 or more just price drops. I don't see that in today's environment, especially in Arizona. There's a lot of builders buying land right now. Everything's going to the outskirts, but there's also a lot of economic and job growth here. Yeah. So plus people retire here. I mean, this is the place to be. We have the best weather. Yeah,
I agree. Well, back in the day, it wasn't very common or even allowed for an investor to purchase a new home. So how is it? I know it varies by community, but if somebody wanted to buy an investment home in your neighborhood, do you allow investors?
So we do allow investors. It's going to be minimal. Yeah. We still want to build a community for the people that are going to live there. And if you sell to too many investors at one time, there's nothing against them. It's not that we're not welcoming them in the market, but we also don't want people to move in and have 10 for rent signs on their street and them not feel comfortable. But yeah, most builders are allowing investors, just might be limited. Yeah, so if you have that limited availability, that could be a cool option for an investor who a lot of investors right now think pricing might go up in 2024 if these interest rates go down. So you could potentially lock in a really good deal on a new build right now, not pay anything but your deposit until closing, which I think is awesome. Now, I had this question the other day. What if somebody buys an inventory home and that home doesn't appraise for their purchase price? What usually happens in that case if they didn't pick out the options? So that's a good question. It's also something that's important for the realtor to ask when they come in or as they're reading the contract. Yeah. In most cases, the builder's going to ask that the buyer change their loan amount or bring in more money. Yeah. They're not always, it's not an automatic price reduction. And in some cases, we find that if people don't have the money, they can change their loan value. And that's a very lender-specific question, that you want to get with a loan officer to talk about what those details are. But there are options out there. Yeah. And remember, an appraisal is just another opinion of the property. Yeah. I could get 2 appraisals and them come in at different values. When prospective buyers are looking at new home communities, there are some great incentives right now, and a lot of those incentives are tied to using the builder's lender. So why is that? Why can't they just use their own lender? Well, they can use their own lender, but most builders have a relationship with a lender, and a lot of it's control. When we say, "Hey, we're going to close on December 31st," I know my lender's going to reach that commitment in that time frame. A lot of other lenders, and I'm not knocking them, but they don't work with new construction on a day-to-day basis, so they may not perform at the same speed or reach your closing date on time.
So at your community, do you have to work with your preferred lender to get all those great closing cost incentives?
Yes. With any of the communities that we're selling in now, that would be the case.
Real estate agents should always have their buyers get a pre-qualification before they start showing them homes. But when you are showing a new build community, there are often, almost always, some incredible closing cost incentives tied to using the builder's lender. So what if a buyer comes in and they're like, I already have my lender. Do they have to use your lender to get the closing cost incentives?
So the buyer always has the choice of lender, right? We can't force somebody to use one or the other. However, we do tie rate buy downs, closing cost incentives, and other things to using our in-house lender. And we do that for a couple reasons. The main reason is we really want to control the closing. So when we give a date to that buyer and we say, listen, you're going to close on December 31st, we know that our lender can perform to that date. And it's nothing against other lenders. Some of them are absolutely can perform to that. Others have not. And unfortunately, I've seen people on holiday weekends standing outside because they've elected to go with their other lender and they haven't funded or recorded, or there wasn't a updated piece of documentation. The other thing with the builder lender is typically they're going to go through that process all up front and then again right before closing. So you're going to go through the underwriting process. You're going to provide all of your loan conditions, bank statements, pay stubs, items like that. They're going to re-pull your credit again towards the end of the process. Most lenders that you're working with, if you're looking at, say, a resale home, they're only going to go through that process once. So it is in their best interest if they do want to take advantage of that. If they don't want to, of course, they can use their own lender. We're okay with that.
And it's tough, right? Because I have actually personally purchased multiple new builds. And I remember purchasing a new build several years ago with Taylor Morrison. And I have a great relationship with my lender. She's one of my good friends. And she had my pre-qual ready to go. But I had to tell her, I'm getting $15,000 to use the builder's lender. And she understands. If your lender truly wants the best for you, they know that they're probably going to lose your business when you buy a new home. But what that lender hopes is when you go to refinance, you think of them and hopefully they stay in contact with you. So don't worry about hurt feelings if you're not going to go with that lender you've been already pre-qualified with, because 9 times out of 10, or maybe even 10 out of 10, nobody can beat the builder's incentives. And you may say, oh, my lender has a lower rate. Well, they don't have all these closing cost incentives and rate buy downs.
It's worth shopping too. I mean, if you want to compare apples to apples, I have had agents really push lenders on their clients before. And I don't know that the client fully understands what's happening or why that's happening. And it's usually in the case that the person came from the lender as a referral. So again, that's the buyer's best interest to make that choice for themselves.
Now, this is all such good information. I hope real estate agents are learning a lot. And one of my last questions is this, because we want to come in as the hero. We want to show our clients that we were able to help them get potentially a better deal. So what advice would you give a real estate agent trying to negotiate with you on one of your homes for sale?
Negotiations are there with new construction, but I wouldn't say that they're always there. I feel like the tides are turning. There are opportunities. I would not want to give away all the secrets here, but there's things like you could ask for maybe reduced earnest money, breaking earnest money up into separate payments. It's not always going to come in price. Keep in mind, if you're asking the builder to negotiate, we might also ask you to negotiate with your commission. I know that a lot of times if we're paying a higher percentage of commission and the buyer's needing more assistance in closing costs, I hate asking the question. I've done it. Some realtors are like, yes. Some are like, how dare you? I understand both sides, but not everything comes in price. So you can negotiate lot premiums. You can negotiate time. You can negotiate contingencies. You could certainly ask for price. You can ask for closing costs. It really depends on the number of sales that the builder has.
So many different factors, right? And you may have a what do they call it? The low price leader, where it's like literally you have no margin. It's just to get people in the door. You don't have a dollar in room to negotiate. What buyers and real estate agents need to understand when they're looking at new home construction is you guys can't afford to just lower the price on one random home, because it affects appraisals for the whole neighborhood, and you end up having to reduce pricing in the future. So people need to understand how appraisals work and why, even though you really want to sell that new home, why you can't take off $100,000 on that home. It just wouldn't make sense.
I think having the right expectation, and again, that realtor coming in and having a conversation or building that relationship with me, because I'm going to tell you right now, if I have a great deal, you're going to know about it. If you're in my phone, you're going to know about it. If we've met, if we've done a deal, chances are you're going to be notified before anyone else gets notified.
Yeah, and it just goes back to, I mean, I think the theme with this whole talk today is real estate agents taking the time to do their research. Nothing comes easy in this business. And when you're setting up your showings for maybe a Saturday to take your clients out, call the new home sales consultant the day before. Ask them, how long do you think we'll be here, so you can manage your time better and you can come in as an expert. And even better, get in your car and drive over there in advance. Preview these models. Be the expert. You have the time. And while you're at your new home sales community, you're meeting new home sales consultants and also getting hopefully some Instagram or even YouTube content. YouTube is one of my #1 lead sources. And one of my best performing YouTube videos is a video that I took with my cell phone at a new home sales community in Queen Creek. I brought my cell phone out. It was very, or I think people like that, where it's from your cell phone. I was showing people around, and I tagged my video. It was the Barney Farms community in Queen Creek by Fulton Homes, and I tagged my video Barney Farms. It had just opened. I got so many calls from that video because prospective buyers are going online and they're searching new home subdivisions. So there's so much potential with YouTube and Instagram. Get out there. There's no excuse. But before we finish up, and I do want to ask if you have any last minute thoughts, but tell us about your community, because what I love it's very special to me where you're selling, because that's actually where I sold for 8 years, Anthem at Merrill Ranch in Florence, Arizona. It holds a lot of special memories for me, but it's one of the best opportunities right now for first time buyers. So can you tell us a little bit about your community? If realtors watching have a buyer in a low price point, why they should come see you?
Well, this is hard, Shannon. You sold in this neighborhood, but I love Anthem. So there's two things about Anthem that I really like. One, for me, it's a lifestyle community. So it may be on the border of Florence and Santan, but this community offers so many amenities. It is resort style living.
Yeah, water park, golf course,
the community
gym.
center. I mean,
So
you
nice.
really don't have to worry about outside expenses when it comes to that. But the other thing that I really like for first time buyers is I'm in a USDA eligible area.
Incredible.
And for those that don't know, that's 100% financing. And so when I tell my story about the person that just bought a $340,000 home, and they literally bought the house for less than what your and my Starbucks order would be, I wasn't kidding.
Yes. We
It
got to
is
send our videographer there. Antonio's ready to buy, zero down.
well, and we have the best price right now when you start looking at the area and just that submarket in general, to get into the low 300s for a finished home.
Incredible.
With all of the options included,
Yeah.
into a community that is full of life. And when I say that, everything is done. There are so many things for you to do. I've done some video, you've done some video on it, and so I would welcome people out to that neighborhood.
There are people renting an apartment right now that don't realize there is a loan program out there called USDA. It's available in more rural areas like your community, Anthem at Merrill Ranch, with 100% financing. And it's so cool to hear that you just had a client buy a home for less than a Starbucks order. And it's happening, right? It seems too good to be true. That's so cool. Well, I hope today has really provided a lot of value for the real estate community. I know we could talk about new builds forever. I mean, this is what we've done. I mean, you've done for almost 20 years. There's so much to it, and there's so many benefits for buyers to buy a new construction home. But is there anything that we're missing? Any last minute thoughts you want to say to the real estate community as a new home sales consultant?
I really just want to welcome them out and ask that as they're creating their presentations and putting together their showings for their clients, that they think about considering or introducing at least one new home into that area. I feel we will probably help consumers and buyers get into their homes faster. And at the end of the day, ultimately, that's what we want to do. We want to make Americans homeowners.
Yes. Well, I love that. And I'm a big fan of D.R. Horton, the builder you work for. They build a really great home, and you're in such a great community. So I also hope that our local Phoenix real estate agents visit you in Anthem at Mail Ranch. Even if they don't have a client looking, go out, film content, familiarize yourself with what you guys are offering there, because it's an incredible value.
We've got some great communities across the East Valley as well.
Yeah, even Coolidge. Coolidge is just booming. You and I got to meet with the mayor of Coolidge not too long ago, and I think people don't realize Coolidge is how far from Chandler? 25-minute drive?
It's about 25 minutes.
Yeah, no one knows. Like, they're like, Coolidge is so far, but hey, you're 25 minutes from Chandler. So that's what everyone always says, like, buy a home further out, and values are just going to grow.
Well, and if you want to be further in, we've got that new community over off Ironwood as well.
Wow. Yeah, they could visit your website, drhorton.com.
Yep.
Go see Sophia.
Would love it.
And thank you so much.
Thank you,
fun.
Shannon. It's always a pleasure.